Hello? Yeah, I've got sound. I've got the difficult task to, just before lunch, just have an interesting discussion again on the topic of innovation hubs. So I would like to do it a little bit different than the last sessions, and I want to engage you a little bit more in the audience, in the discussions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the panelists to say very short, with one slide presentation on what they are and their vision on the topic. And then after that, I'm going to ask a few questions, but I'm going to allow you also to ask the questions. So be prepared, because if I don't get any questions, I will go to you and ask you questions. Yes, so the objective of this panel is to explore how to create a pan-European network. So we've got a lot of more regional-oriented digital innovation networks, but we have to learn from each other. As I already discussed this morning, and I presented in my 2 slides, we were engaged in the mentoring program, and the mentoring program was about not only about initiating the individual hubs, but also to create a kind of a network, to learn from each other. Well, that was still in its early stages, and now it's time to also think a little bit further about how to create that pan-European network, and also how are the business models to be able to use each other's experience. How can we deal with that? So before I open up the floor to you, I would like to ask the individual panelists to say something about themselves and also their vision, provide their vision on this topic of creating a pan-European network. So Erika, and now I need to find somewhere where I can push a button so the next slide will be there. Can someone, yes. Here you are, Erika. It's good. And
doesn't work? Now it works. Okay, when it's red, it works. Okay. Okay, my name is Erika Virkkunen. I come from VTT Technical Research Center of Finland. I'm a research manager there, but I've been heavily involved now recently in this digital innovation hub discussions with the Ministry of in Finland. And then I'm also working on the renewal of industries strategy at VTT, but it's also part of national strategy, and then some other activities as well. I actually was asked to say, well, what is VTT doing associated with the Digital Innovation Hub, so that the slide is trying to reflect that, but we can of course talk of other things as well. But just to present, so we in Finland, we started to construct this Digital Innovation Hub picture starting from our strong domains. Actually, initially we thought about thinking only of domains such as transport, energy, healthcare, and so on. But then, of course, we realized that Finland is a very ICT-oriented country, and a country for engineers, that we need to have these purely ICT-oriented hubs as well. So finally, we came up to about 10 plus hubs, 10 to 15 hubs that are not yet finalized, and there's of course dynamity in that where the sort of the ICT-oriented hubs are concentrating on 5G, IoT, industrial internet, and artificial intelligence. Then in the manufacturing side, we have smart manufacturing, printed electronics, and process industry, where, for example, printed electronics is already a very established hub. But on the other hand, in the smart manufacturing, which is more oriented to the traditional sector, we are establishing almost a hub of hubs. So we have activities there, but we haven't been thinking it as a one hub before. Transport is important because it's really an area where Finland has invested a lot, especially in marine and autonomous ships. And energy is going in a transition, not only in Finland, but everywhere. So we thought that digitalization has a really important role there, so it needs to have a hub. And finally, healthcare system in Finland is also in a structural change, so digital hub there has its space. And then what VTT is doing, so we are actually in almost all of these hubs, and we are also spread all over Finland, so you can't avoid us, even if you would like to, if you go in different cities in Finland. So we are working in all of the hubs very actively and helping the ministry to structure this in a correct and good way. Also, VTT is very active in the European research, and therefore we have a possibility to help the other actors, the companies, but also the smaller universities or universities for applied sciences to go international.
Okay. And if you look at the pan-European network, what's your idea of the pan-European network? How does the pan-European network fit within the activities of VTT and Finland?
So maybe the first thought here is that I think that all the hubs need to be highly connected to other hubs in Europe and even broader. So if you really want to be competitive, you need to be good enough, and to raise the quality, you need to be international. So I can't even actually see hubs that are purely regional.
Okay, thank you, Erika. Our next panelist is Aleš Udem. He works for the Joseph Stefan Institute in the field of robotic learning and humanoid robots. But I think what is important here is that he is also the coordinator, or one of the coordinators of the Reconcile project, which is one of the IFRMS project. So that might give us some nice insights in what a pan-European network looks like. Aleš?
Okay, so let me start first with some of the experience we made.
Could you talk a little bit more?
I'll try.
Yes.
Can you give the previous slide, actually? Is the slide changed? Yeah. Excellent. So I would just like to say a few words about the experience we had with this mentoring program, since my project was responsible for establishing 5 of the new hubs in the I4MS program. So basically, the main, as you can see from this list of the hubs, they are from basically very different areas of Europe. So from what you would call an advanced regions in Europe to the countries that are not even in the EU at the moment yet. And so basically it turns out that these hubs have to do very different things. So if you are Kurt Nielsen of DTI was talking before about Odense, so there they always had a hub, they just didn't call it like this, and basically now they just need to develop it further to the new conditions. But if you are from some newer country, then you deal with totally different issues. So like establishing trust, the business environment is not there, and so basically you need to work much more on the ecosystem development. And I would say, the initiatives like it was this before from the European Parliament are probably very useful, not just to develop the hubs, but also to tell to the regional governments where they should actually invest in the future, because they probably don't know themselves where their strengths are at the moment. Okay, so can we go to the next slide? Okay, and then since I am from the area of robotics, I would just say some of the peculiarities of robotics. So robotics, of course, requires large investment, and that's also a bit of a problem for us as a hub, because the SME actually needs to commit to quite some investment before we can actually make robots useful. Well, they can test the technology, but the threshold to the decision to actually take up this technology is maybe a bit higher if you need to invest a lot and change your complete production because of this new product. But here it's also what the cross-border collaboration becomes very useful. So if there is a large investment necessary, then probably it's not possible to do everything in one region. So if you want to just start the robotics development in your region, then the innovation hub, it's probably not the first thing you have to start, but something else. So basically, in that case, if you just want to use robotics, it's better to go to a different region, and here these networks of hubs can help. And also, if we have, so at Joseph Stefan Institute, I would say that we have some experience in robotics, but still we lack some other experiences. So one of the success stories that was presented here was from us, and basically this was done in collaboration with Blue Ocean Robotics from Odense, because so it would be more difficult to get some initial capital, to establish a company and to start a company in Slovenia than in Denmark, where the environment for this is better. So I think it was a nice example of cross-border collaboration that actually enabled something that to come from the lab to the actual product.
Okay, and your view on how to create, what are the problems and how can they be addressed to create better cooperation between, for example, Reconcile and all the other all the other innovation actions? What are the peculiar problems and how can you address them?
I mean, every robotics project kind of offers some specific technologies, and so Reconcile, and specifically it's about the reconfigurable work cells. So basically we need to be aware, what is actually available elsewhere, so that once somebody comes to us with a problem that is actually not suitable to our technologies, we can actually direct them somewhere else. And I think this network can help. But of course, for this, there are new programs that are in the pipeline now. So I guess these programs will help actually to establish such a network, because for now, at least for our case, we knew more about the research organizations, but we did not know so much about the other technology transfer organizations. So if this network is now established, this will become much easier for us.
Good. I think we're going to talk about these things a lot more later on, because I'm sure you've got a lot of questions. The next speaker is Marzia Morgantini. Is that correct? Yeah. Thank you. And she works for the Lombardian Industry Association, AFIC, and they play a role in the Industry 4.0, a large role in the Industry 4.0 and the advanced manufacturing industry. And what is interesting here is that it's a more regional-oriented industry association, so she can, I'm sure, spare some insights how to deal with this. I'll get the first slide.
Yes, thank you. So I'm Marta Morgantini. I work for AFIL, which is the Lombardy Intelligent Factory Association. So AFIL is one of the 9 Lombardy clusters focused on advanced manufacturing. When I try to explain what AFIL is and which are the activities of AFIL, I like to say that AFIL is a sort of bridge between the companies and all the rest of the innovation ecosystem. So in AFIL, for instance, we have 140 members, 10 associations, 115 companies, and 13 research centers and universities, which are the most important university and research centers of Lombardy. It is not a big number, but believe me, it is a very active community. So what AFIL do is to boost the cooperation between those actors. Companies, associations, research centers and universities meet during our working groups. We have 5 working groups focused on the thematic that you can see on the slide, and one specific working group, which is the Digital and Intelligent Factory, is specifically focused on Industry 4.0 thematics and on the thematics on the activities that AFIL pursue as a regional manufacturing digital innovation hub. So we are a sort of bridge between the companies and the region. Indeed, we are an important counterpart for the Lombardy region and for the National Technological Cluster of Intelligent Manufacturing in updating and in defining their research priorities and their research strategies. And this is done thanks to the active cooperation of our companies. During the working groups, companies bring to light which are their needs, their priorities, and we are able to interact and to discuss it with the region. The last very important thing, which I think is one of the most powerful tools of AFIL, is our interregional network. Indeed, thanks to the 7 ongoing European projects and to some European initiatives in which we are involved, for instance, the Vanguard initiatives, we have strengthened a very important interregional network. In particular, we cooperate with 50 European regions, and the most rooted cooperation are with some of the most important regions of Europe, for instance, Baden-Württemberg, Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, Catalonia, but we have cooperation with 50 regions. This is thanks particularly to the 7 European projects in which we are directly involved. One of these is the BIN-CPPS, which is a project that was born under the program I4MS, and within this project we has been recognized by the Lombardy Regional Manufacturing Digital Innovation Hub. We also participated to the mentoring program, showing which is our idea of a business model that a digital innovation hub.
Very good.
Not an easy task. With the picture on the right side of the slide, I want to show you which is our idea of a pan-European digital innovation hub network, or at least which is our idea of cooperation between all the most important organizations or all the hubs in Lombardy. As you probably know, the Italian government has recognized some digital innovation hubs, which are mainly based on industrial organizations. These organizations are very rooted in our ecosystem in the region because they are very close to the companies. They really know which are their needs. We don't want to be, as AFIL, an overlapping organization, but we think that our support can really be a powerful tool to let them succeed in an effective way. So we think that if on one side digital innovation hub based on industrial organization can active on an operational way, on an operational perspective, staying very close to the company, AFIL can be an important actor in boosting the network with the other region.
Great.
Basically, this.
I'm also very interested that you're in the Vanguard initiative, because that will allow us, and it's also informative for you, the Vanguard, of course, creates pan-European networks in the cooperation, and Marcia is involved in that, so she can share some insights in that. So the next speaker is Jorge Galvan. I must say that I'm very proud because he is one of the mentored projects also, and what is interesting there is that he is from the Canary Islands, and we've got Finland and the Canary Islands, so that's the top of Europe and the bottom of Europe, the southern part of Europe. How could I say that correctly, diplomatically? So Jorge he is mentoring he is organizing, coordinating the CD Hub project, and so please, Jorge, tell us a little bit about that, and I'll get the slides for you, hopefully. Yes.
Okay. Hello, thanks, Marit. I'm Jorge Alba. I'm representing Avantalia Soluciones, which is a consultancy-based company for innovation and technology management and also transfer. And we are the leading partner and actually promoters of the Canary Islands Digital Innovation Hub, City Hub. We, as you can see there, we work under the technological topic of cloud-based and high-performance computing simulation services for our engineering and manufacturing industry in very specific sectors that I will mention later on. We have clear from our beginning, clear vision and associated mission on trying to connect as much as possible the technology providers in the region, digital technology providers with the manufacturing and users, being entrepreneurs, SMEs, and even large enterprises we have there. And also with a final goal of trying to increase as much as possible and as quick as possible the final number of manufacturing end users making use of those kind of technologies. As I said, Avantalia is the leading partner. We act also as a consultancy expert provider for the hub. We have on board the main competence center in the region for those kind of technologies, which is the Institute of Technology and Renewable Energy, actually having one of the most important supercomputing resources in the country, in Spain. We also count on the participation of the two main industry representatives and associations, which are FEMETE and FEMEPA. And last but not least, we've been really successful in engaging from the very beginning of our business plan preparation phase during this last year to the Canary Island government, okay, the regional support from the regional government, which provides us with a really key strategic and institutional support. And as the hub has been designed, at least for our short and medium-term operations, we'll be addressing three main target sectors there in the Canaries. First is the maritime and offshore industry, okay, based in our two main ports. We play a relevant position and activity for the whole Atlantic Ocean. We will also be addressing the automotive industry with a very specific focus on the additive manufacturing of spare parts for prototype validation, okay? Because we are trying to attract, we are being successful in that, to important foreign firms to make that kind of operations due to our geographically conditions there in prototyping validation. And third, we'll be also covering activities as a hub focusing on the audiovisual and creative industry.
And your vision on...
Next. I have my vision
your
there.
Vision is, that's good.
So, concerning the topic of the panel, I can say that probably we have been one of the pioneers in trying to set very basics that you can see there, from which we will try to build and some kind of collaboration frameworks with different digital innovation hubs in Europe. And we've been working on that during the last year at two levels. At the European level, we have been signing kind of memorandum of understandings with different digital innovation hubs working under the same topic like we do in HPC resources and technology. But also we've been working at a national level in Spain, where we kind of created a network with the different Spanish hubs under the I4MS initiative as well.
Okay, but perhaps that's for later. I'm very interested how your government sees the cooperation with the other regions and how you can stimulate them to contribute to that. But first, let me finish the introductions of the two last panelists. Panos is one of our earliest mentored projects. He was involved in the so-called first call of the I4MS mentoring program. He's working for the LMS, the Laboratory of Manufacturing Systems in the University of Madras, and we learned a lot from him for the second phase. So, Panos?
Okay, thank you, Maurice. Okay, good evening. I'm Panos Papadopoulos. I'm coming from LMS, and I'm representing the Pioneer Digital Innovation Hub under the name Manu Hub at Western Greece. The hub was submitted at the pilot case.
A little bit more to the microphone.
It was one of the three first pilot hubs to be selected for this pilot program. And initially the partners were we have set up the partnership in terms of to have an equal amount of public partners and an equal amount of private partners. So the core partners of the hub is of course is LMS, acting as a competence center, also a main knowledge center, together with two private partnerships for STEVE and SEVIPA. These are the two associations in the region of Western Greece. The one has been it's the association that covers all the IT and ICT related SME companies in the region of Western Greece, and the other association, SEVIPA, has to do with the SMEs that are being based in the industrial zones that are in the area of Western Greece. The main mission is to create added value for the services and products of the local manufacturing companies via innovative solutions and R&D activities performed by our laboratory or other competence centers. During the first phase of the project, we've identified the main services that are required and asked from the local SMEs to be provided, and can be categorized into three main sectors. These are technical services, training, and consulting services. And of course, this had to be in line with various, and for our case, 3 different membership tiers regarding the requirements of the SMEs. Of course, one of the major parts was, and let's say the most tricky, if I can say, part was to get involved and on board our regional government. For 2 reasons. First of all, that the regional government is already established in the area and has a kind of relation with the SMEs. And it's, in any case, it's a very, very useful partner, a very, very useful tool, but you have to be sure how to use it. Just for the indication, our region has been awarded with the EER prize for 2017. So it's been awarded as the European Enterprise Region for 2017, and this has created a set of actions that we are also in line and online with ManuHub during the last couple of months.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to ask you, if no one in the audience asks you, how your Greek regional government thinks about pan-European cooperation. That's also. Our last panelist is John Cosgrove. John is the technological director of the Acorn Research Center, and he initiated the IS for Prod Hub, and based also on his expertise in factory automation. So could you tell a little bit about yourself and your vision on pan-European networking?
Thank you. Yeah, another one.
No, this one.
Yeah, thank you. So our hub is based in the west of Ireland. It's a peripheral region. We have a large industrial base in the region, and particularly manufacturing is very strong. It's close to 20% of employment, where nationally it's around 10%. So in terms of manufacturing, it's very important to the region to support that. The opportunity to propose the hub brought together quite a number of actors, state agencies, some SMEs, some trade associations, and a competence center. It started with 8 partners, and we now have 60. It's been very successful. It's been very successful to focus, to understand what the ecosystem is, and to focus on what we can actually do to really help SMEs. We held a number of workshops. Our focus is particularly around intelligent systems. We had 5 workshops with a lot of participants. We developed 4 use cases, all of which have been successfully submitted for further funding from either European or national programs. And it's been a very good experience. It's been a very good way of bringing together the different actors, which were very disparate and very scattered and not very focused. And I think we now have actually a much more coherent offering for the region. One of our successes has been to submit one project, an application experiment, to an open call under BNCPPS. That project was successful. It started over the summer. And that's a really interesting one. We took a kind of a new model where the competence center isn't the one doing the research. We have a manufacturing company who are the technology user, and an SME who are a technology provider. And we brokered a project between them, which was successful in funding. So it's an interesting new development effectively for us. And we will have hopefully a lighthouse project from that over the coming few months.
Yes, and I think it is a good example on how the digital innovation hubs and the innovation actions can work together, also not within their own consortia, but also outside of consortia to join up and to create a better European industry. So I think that's a very good example. So I've got a list of all kinds of questions here, and I'm looking at time. We've got, I'm taking a little bit more time, but we've got about half an hour left. So I can ask the questions, but I can also give you the floor. And that's what I prefer. So are there other questions? You first and then over there. You stick to the objective, then European level.
Definitely. So, first of all, thank you very much, because we are leading one of the innovation hubs in Asturias, and we're very proud of participating under the umbrella of I4MS, along with FEMETAL. So my question is that it's very clear that there is a good coordination between the new digital innovation hubs and so on, but there is any action or any specific motivation in order to coordinate with other important initiatives at European level, like European technology platforms, like joint technology initiatives, like the Vanguard initiative, and so on. So because it's going to help us a lot in order to explain not only the companies but also the regional administration what is the real difference between all these actors that are in the European ecosystem. So thank you.
I think that's a wonderful question, because I do see that there's a lot of initiatives from the Commission to coordinate, but how to coordinate the coordination is again an issue. So, yeah, Erika, could I ask you to answer it a little bit from your experience?
Well, it's a very difficult question, of course, but I guess we all agree that it would be wonderful, for example, in the FP9 to have a bit more coordinated approach to this coordination. And but of course, I mean, these actions and activities that you all also mentioned, they have their own histories. So, I mean, if we look back like 6 years or so, where they probably stem from, so they have had a reason why they're there, and then of course this. It just gets so scattered. But I mean, as a VTTer, I would love to see a more structured view to all these actions. And this is also something that we need to do in between the national initiatives and the European initiatives to streamline these. So we need to be aware of those both and have this interplay. And one of the very wonderful tools here is these vision papers and these kind of scenario buildings that are ongoing, and it doesn't even need so much funding. So these could be sort of the background work that could be done before we establish new structures and instruments.
Yeah, I do think that the multi-level, so the European, national, regional, so it's not only the coordination between the European project, it's also the coordination between the projects on European, national and regional. Alish, can I ask you also to, from your experience of Reconcile, say something about it, because you've been engaged in several of these coordination meetings, of course. So what's your experience there?
So for me, it's important, you know, that people are actually interested in the topic that is being coordinated. So this needs to be organized around some real needs of the participants. So basically, I don't know, in robotics we have there's a real need to have some more standards, you know, because basically the robots are not interoperable at the moment. So, you know, if you organize such coordination action around such topics, then probably you can be very useful. Yeah. The other thing is that simply to give access to people from regions. So Slovenia is a relatively small country. Well, Slovenia is smaller than a region of Lombardy that my colleague on the left come from. Yeah. And basically, you know, for us, it is important that we are integrated with in this network, so that because it simply does not make sense for us to do everything in Slovenia, so we have to be integrated in this network. So I think smaller countries have a lot of interest in being part of this networks.
So focus the coordination also on the topics and try to engage the somewhat smaller regions, because they are also very important. They are very important customers, so to say.
Exactly.
So there was a question here, I think.
Hello, my name is Pierre. I'm contributing to run a small, I didn't know it was one until very recently, a small digital innovation hub in France. And I have a question which has, to my knowledge, not been addressed yet, which is the sustainability, financial sustainability of the digital innovation hubs. On my little hub, we have been fighting for 3 years, and we are getting there. But what are the objectives in terms of overall cooperation in Europe regarding the sustainability in terms of share of money from the industry, money from the regions, money from Europe? What is the objective? What is your opinion?
So if I can translate it to the topic here at hand, which is of course not the sustainability of the Digital Innovation Hub, but the sustainability of the pan-European cooperation, that's a very important question. How can you organize this? What are business models that are behind it to make it operational? So John, can I ask you?
Yeah, I suppose it's something, I mean, as part of our Business Hub, we did a feasibility study, which again effectively said that in the short term, the hub isn't feasible to, quite simply, without state funding, as a standalone business. But locally and regionally, there is a plan to where you can get to sustainability. Where I think additionality is needed is where you go cross-border, because if an SME is working, SMEs need local hubs. I think that's our experience. They need their user requirements to be interpreted locally and translated locally, and the local hub can then engage with other hubs or centers of excellence across Europe. But that engagement needs European funding. That will never be, I think, sustainable at a local level.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question here.
Thank you very much. My name is Annette Brown. I'm from the German Association of Engineers, and what I would like to know from the hubs is, how do you find your SMEs, or how do they find you? From the German experience, I can say that SMEs have, particularly the very small enterprises, have so many things to do. They have not even the time to look around for a hub, for a local hub. What they need is very practical advice, very basic advice, in order to find their potential to digitalize. Very often, that's their problem. And I mean, if you go further, the question is, for what do very small enterprises then need a European network if they do not even find their local counselors or advisors? Thank you.
So there's a few questions hidden in this, I think. So there's a question of the digital innovation hubs finding their SMEs or vice versa, but also perhaps a question about how the SMEs from one region can find a digital innovation hub or a competence center in another region, and is there a need for that? That's also a question. Panos, can I ask you to answer?
Okay, one of the most, let's say, tricky parts or most difficult parts during the process of setting up the hub was to be able to get in touch and get in contact and communicate with the local SMEs. Especially in our region, okay, local SMEs are small or very small family-driven companies, okay? And they are experiencing a very difficult day-to-day operation. So, of course, we didn't have any time or any views for digital manufacturing or digitize their manufacturing processes. How we did approach them? This is since The laboratory was established in the region, it was well established in the region. We had a portfolio of companies that we knew, okay? The second way goes through the local government. The local government has actions. They do have actions. They do have meetings. They do have open days. They do have some communication channels towards the local SMEs. And the third way goes by selecting the consortium partners. This is why we have selected two associations. One association with the partners related to the IT, ICT technologies, and one association with the partners related to the hardcore, let's say, manufacturing technologies. So I think the best way to approach them is to find various channels to communicate of what the hub can do to them, either through regional regional governments or by their associations by themselves.
And can you channel those activities, can you channel them to other regions also?
Yes, this is one of the main topics we're discussing now with our region, is how we can establish inter-regional or intra-regional channels of communication so that the SMEs from different regions, close to us or not close to us, can benefit of the ManuHub activities and ManuHub services.
Good.
Thank you, Moritz. My name is Uwe Haas. I have two ideas about a pan-European network of digital innovation hubs. First is twinning. You know, the map of European DIHs looks quite impressive, and it's growing now a lot. I mean, how many? 500. But if the map of unemployment, if you look at the map of unemployment, it's terrible. If you look at the map of innovation capacity in terms of the OECD figures, the score, regional scores, national scores for innovation, it's a terrible difference between the top and the lowest. How about twinning? Digital innovation hubs from the very top have to work together with digital innovation hubs from the very bottom of the score. This is the suggestion number one. The suggestion number two is to extend the digital innovation hubs from a single-stop shop by making Europe innovative. Extend your business from a consultancy into something which makes the whole population innovative, from schools to policymakers, industry, chambers of commerce. There is a picture which is shown by the Commission always, where a regional hub consists of chambers of commerce, educational institutions. Yes, make this work, and not only do some, let's say, consultancy work for SMEs.
George, can I ask you to respond on that? Yes.
So in fact, one of the findings or conclusions that we were discussing yesterday in the closing meeting of our mentoring program under I4MS initiative was the real need for support in order to create or start thinking about we call it multi-business model approaches, in order to somehow try to align different services, different competences, different interests in general and expectations, because of the very wide variety of stakeholders that are normally under the scope or the vision of a region for a regional hub. Imagine when we start thinking about collaboration among different regions, countries all around Europe. It's a really difficult, complex task, but one of the first things to start thinking about is that possibility to start thinking about new innovative business model in order to approach that in a more proper way.
And the twinning element there, can you see your hub twinning with other hubs?
Well, yes, I can see. I can see
what
more.
Is needed? What is needed?
Maybe at a lower level, because the real role of a hub is the leveraging of somehow the brokerage interaction among a region and among different regions within a region and among different regions. But there, the real collaboration I can see in a short term basis is more maybe on the basis of competence centers. But there is where the hub has to play a really important and key position and activity. Yeah.
So twinning, especially on the competence center level, with the help of the Digital Innovation Hub.
Maybe if, as a first approach and in a more shorter term basis.
Good.
Edgar's Lithuanian Robotic Hub probably will continue on the same side with suggestion number 3. When we are talking about cross-border cooperation with various hubs, we are usually showing such nice ecosystems with lots of players and so on. It's very difficult to think how you can cooperate. At the same time, in the morning session, it was mentioned that when it comes to the end users, to the SMEs, what they need is they need solutions to their pain. And what I want to see in the further our cooperation is to see more debates about what solutions are developed in that hub and probably in the competence center within the hub, because if I will recognize the same pain, I will go to that hub which has the solution. Yes.
So finding the right competence, Marcia, if you look at the role you can play as an industry association, how do you see that?
Well, I think that this is an important activities that a hub should be. For instance, I can tell you what we do in AFIL. We have actually launched an initiative which is called 104.0, which means 104.0, where we let companies which have undertaken the digitalization journey show their solution. Let me briefly explain. We ask companies which have implemented digital simple solution to talk about this, and we map this solution, this activity on our website. I think that is a good starting point also for very small enterprises that they don't know what to do. They have a problem, they do not have a lot of money to invest, they just want one solution. If they can see the real advantages, then they come to the hub, they ask for the solution, and the hub has to need to have the capabilities to directly connect this company with the solution provider. I think that this is a hard task, but very important for...
So one of the findings of the Digital Innovation Hub mentoring program, and also connected to the Digital Innovation Hub catalog, is that looking at the services provided by the 500 hubs now included in the catalog, very little have digital maturity assessments. And that's, I think, a little bit what you're talking about, how to assess what is your needs. That's not really addressed by the Digital Innovation Hubs as a core element, a core systematic element. So that might be a very interesting way to proceed. And I'll give the microphone, but I'll ask you to perhaps ask a question also a little bit towards business models for a pan-European innovation.
Thank you. My name is Domenico Rotondi from Fincons SPA Italy. Okay, my question was just related to what you were saying. I saw a lot of attention to the technologies. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm a technology guy, but I think that there are two things that I didn't saw this morning. One is related to support SMEs or enterprises in general in changing their business models. As a company, I'm involved in some of the projects that have been mentioned today. And for example, the servitization needs a completely rethinking of the way in which you produce, the way in which you interface your customers. Not only a change in a technology or in the technology that you use to produce the stuff. And so I think this is one of the issues that has to be addressed by the Digital Innovation Hub, especially at the pan-European level. The second aspect is related to the development of the new skills, both for entrepreneurs and people that work in a company, as well as in school, university, and so on, because this kind of stuff requires new skills, and often these kind of skills have to be not just specific, for example, on technologies, on business stuff, but has to be cross-domain. Thanks.
So Alish, I think Reconcile does quite a bit of business modeling. And my question, just translating it to a pan-European level, how can you make sure that the knowledge you have on the business model, on business models, that it can be shared to also other digital innovation hubs? So how to organize that it's spread out to a pan-European level?
I mean, we are establishing a digital, the network of the Digital Innovation Hub is being established now, right? So that's not what we are doing at the moment. So I would say we are trying to offer, this services within our Digital Innovation Hub, but this networking aspect was probably a bit less important for the Reconcile project at the moment, at least. But I can definitely see, that like the gentleman there, I'm also a technology guy, so that's why I was speaking more of the technology problems. But within the hub or the project, we actually do consider how to change the business models and start and totally change your business process. Now, to go to the topic, I'm not really sure I have an answer, actually, I must say, to how specifically for a business processes. I mean, to me, it looks, basically what we are now trying to establish with these new networks in the EU is actually trying to address specifically this. So it doesn't really matter if it's a technology or a business process, or if it's skill development. In any case, there are probably only a few places where you can really offer everything. But on the other side, there are a few things that needs to stay regional. Before it was a discussion whether it makes sense that now, I don't know, the hub from Germany starts looking at SMEs in Slovenia. I don't think it really makes sense. This should be done by the Slovenian hub, and then connect these SMEs to the services that are offered somewhere else. I think that's the point. Okay.
And John, you were involved in the mentoring program also, and business modeling of business models was one of the issues. But could you share your idea about this question?
We also, in our investigations with manufacturing SMEs, particularly manufacturing SMEs in our region, we did some workshops on servitization, different business models, and different ways of changing how, breaking the mold. I mean, I would take an argument with one of the earlier speakers. If you only solve the problem, today's problem for the company, well, then they won't have a problem down the road because they'll have been bypassed. If they're going from industry 3.2 to 3.3, industry 4 is where we need to get them. But on the servitization, what the companies very much were clear on is they like to see best practice. So if they can see examples from another country, from the core of Europe, where a precision engineering company has moved to a service-based offering, that's what they're very interested in, seeing videos of that business owner explaining how they engage with the process. I think they need to see it. I think they actually need to, see it, touch it, and feel it before they would have confidence to make those kind of changes in their company.
Okay, but perhaps it would be interesting to share the expertise among the digital innovation hubs, how to deal with business models, in a way that Aleš already suggested that on specific topics the coordination should be organized. So Adam, could you ask your question?
Yes, thank you, Moritz. I'm Adam Olszewski, Poznań Supercomputing and Networking Center, HPC for Poland Hub. I have a question about success factors of the companies that we're supposed to support. I can be very creative about what can be done in terms of international collaboration between hubs, but I like things to be measurable. So what is it that you think should be the perceived value of the companies that we are supporting resulting from international collaboration? I mean, every hub has limited resources, limited time of the people that can work for the companies. So thinking from the perspective of a hub, why should we spend time on international relations instead of focusing on creating just services for the companies, especially at the very early stage? Or is it maybe that we should be thinking about collaboration on a later stage? Or I'd like to know your perspective about it. I mean, I like very much the concept of international collaboration, but I'd like to convince myself actually to start being convincing for the companies we collaborate with. And also, Moritz asked me to make a reference to the catalog. So probably the catalog, as you have a lot of hubs there, it's also a question about how much should we, as hubs, be pushing towards growing the catalog to a bigger number instead of just focusing on the stuff that we know has to be done for our companies.
So who am I going to select? Erika.
Okay, I will try to answer or give my views to the first part of the question. It was such a long question that I sort of couldn't follow to the end. But about this internationalization, so as mentioned already in the beginning, so I think that when we are doing collaboration in Europe, it definitely means that you increase sort of the quality of your work. Whether you're so in that sense, the services of the hubs will be developing much faster and much more ambitiously if you are in an international collaboration instead of staying regional or local. And then the second thing is that when we are talking about digitalization and especially like digital services or building platforms and so on, so you definitely need more people, you need the network efforts, you need users. So to get this all kind of good impact that is described in many, for example, digital platform discussions, you need to have more people involved. So we need to work together. We are too small alone or in regional efforts. And then finally, for the companies, I mean, they're constantly looking for new partners, I mean, business partners and new competencies. So I'm sure that there's no region that can offer all that for the companies. The companies are multinational, becoming, or if they're not multinational, they are looking for new customers abroad and so on. So they also need the contacts.
Thank you.